Some films don't just entertain you, they see you. For me, The Thunderbolts wasn't just another Marvel story or superhero film that I loved. It was something deeper, something that hit me in a place I didn't expect. Beneath all the explosions and action sequences and funny one-liners, there's a story about broken people learning to heal together, about finding light in others when you can't see it in yourself. And when I watched it, I saw pieces of my own story that I've experienced in my past. You know, the loneliness, the anger, and the quiet emptiness that comes with not loving who you are. And for a long time, I personally lived in that space. You know, I didn't hate the world, but I also didn't love myself enough to believe I deserved happiness. And like the Thunderbolts, each one is, haunted by guilt and trauma or loss. And just like them, I kept everything bottled up because it felt safer than reaching out. And what I didn't realize back then was that the key to healing isn't found in isolation, but in connection. Once I started surrounding myself with people who truly cared about who I was, people who saw me at my lowest and stayed anyway, everything began to shift. Having those kinds of friends, the kind who love you even when you can't love yourself, changes everything for you. And it's the same kind of bond that I see in the Thunderbolts or in Guardians of the Galaxy or One Piece. It's that found family that makes life worth fighting for again. And while the Thunderbolts may look like a movie about anti-heroes saving the world, it's really a story about people saving each other. For those who have struggled with depression, the film hits differently. I mean, it reminds you that love, trust, and friendship can be powerful tools for healing. And by showing us how damaged individuals begin to rediscover their worth through one another, the Thunderbolts captures the truth that no one heals alone, and that sometimes the strongest superpower of all is being loved. One of the most striking things about the Thunderbolts is that every member of the team is carrying something heavy: guilt, trauma, loneliness, or regret. Unlike the Avengers, who often fight for ideals larger than themselves, the Thunderbolts are made up of people who are simply trying to survive their own minds. They are not symbols of hope, they are evidence of damage. The film doesn't frame their pain as something noble or heroic. It lets it exist quietly, uncomfortably, and unresolved. And in doing so, the Thunderbolts presents one of the most honest depictions of depression in the Marvel Universe. Bucky Barnes lives with the weight of everything he did as the Winter Soldier. Even though he wasn't fully in control, his past still clings to him, shaping how he sees himself long after others tell him he's redeemed. Yelena hides her grief behind sharp humor and emotional distance, using sarcasm as armor against the loss she never properly processed. The Red Guardian performs masculinity and patriotism like a character on a stage, masking his fear that he's irrelevant, forgotten, and no longer needed. And then there's Bob. Bob's depression is the most raw and least disguised. Where others build defenses, Bob barely has any left. He doesn't hide behind humor or pride. He exists in a state of quiet collapse. His pain is inward-facing, a constant belief that something is fundamentally wrong with him. Bob doesn't see himself as tragic or misunderstood. He sees himself as unnecessary. That belief that the world would be better, simpler, or quieter without you. It's one of the most devastating lies that depression tells. And through Bob, the film gives shape to a kind of suffering that doesn't announce itself. It just drains the color out of everything. What the Thunderbolts understands is that depression doesn't always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like joking through the pain. Sometimes it looks like emotional distance. Sometimes it looks like pretending you don't care because caring feels too dangerous. And sometimes, like with Bob, it looks like disappearing into yourself entirely. The film refuses to glamorize this pain. It sits with it. It allows silence, awkwardness, and emotional disconnection to exist without rushing toward a solution. When I watched these characters, I saw pieces of myself in all of them, but especially in Bob. There's a time in my life when I woke up every morning already tired, not because I hadn't slept, but because being alive felt heavy for reasons I couldn't explain. I didn't actively hate myself, I just didn't believe I was worth loving. Depression made me feel invisible, even to my own heart. I went through my days smiling, staying busy, doing what I was supposed to do, but beneath it all, I felt hollow. In watching the Thunderbolts, I recognized that same hollowness in their eyes. That feeling of being alive, but disconnected from everything around you. And what makes this aspect of the film so powerful is its focus on false armor. the emotional defense people build to survive. That kind of emotional self-defense felt painfully familiar to me. When I was depressed, I built walls so high that no one could climb them because being open felt like an invitation to get hurt. And while I wanted people to be in my life, I also didn't, if that makes sense. And I convinced myself that I could fix everything alone, that needing people was ultimately a weakness. But the Thunderbolts makes it clear that isolation doesn't protect you, it just deepens the wounds. Depression steals the belief that someone could understand you. Seeing that belief slowly return for these characters, especially for Bob, feels like watching someone take their first real breath after being underwater for too long. And what makes the Thunderbolts resonate so deeply isn't its portrayal of pain, it's how it shows that healing begins the moment someone decides to stop facing it alone. And at the emotional core of that transformation is Bob, a man whose struggle isn't masked by sarcasm, bravado, or grit. Is exposed, vulnerable, and deeply human. Bob starts the film as something of an enigma, a frightened, damaged man in hospital scrubs with no clear idea who he is or why he's there. But beneath this unassuming exterior lies someone whose psyche has been fractured by trauma, addiction, and manipulation by forces that saw him as a weapon rather than a person. Injected with an unstable super serum and shaped into a super soldier by Valentina Super Soldier program science project thing, Bob's power isn't just physical, it's psychological. Tied to an alter ego known as the Void, a darkness fueled by his insecurities and self-loathing. The Void isn't an external villain in the story, it's an embodiment of Bob's internal battle. Thoughts and fears that erase everything that makes life feel worth living. And in the context of depression, the Void is a frighteningly familiar metaphor. A force that doesn't scream or rage, but quietly erases meaning, isolates you in your own mind, and makes you believe that your existence is a burden on others. The turning point comes not with a triumphant battle, but the Thunderbolts' decision to stay with Bob inside his darkest place, quite literally entering the realm of his subconscious where the Void has trapped him in nightmarish memories. In this surreal landscape, Yelena reaches Bob not through admonitions or heroics, but through shared vulnerability. She doesn't fight the Void with strength alone, she fights it with understanding, showing Bob that his pain isn't something to be ashamed of and that his worst memories don't define his worth. There isn't a single moment of triumph, it's a process of collective insistence that Bob is not alone. The team surrounds him in his most fractured state, offering support without erasing the reality of his struggle. This act of solidarity, of being with him rather than fixing him, is the pivotal emotional moment of the film. Bob's arc mirrors a truth that many people with depression know intimately. Healing isn't a dramatic turnaround, but a slow, often uncomfortable realization that you don't have to bear everything yourself. For years, I told myself that strength was facing my pain alone, that reaching out would only make me weaker, make me feel worse somehow, but that belief was just another form of the Void. A voice inside my mind that convinced me my struggles were isolating, unworthy of attention or care. But watching Bob's arc made me see how isolating that mindset is and how deeply connection, even imperfect, awkward, messy connection, could pull someone back from the edge. In Bob's final moments of confrontation with the Void, what wins isn't denial or forgetting, it's acceptance. He doesn't suddenly become unbroken. He doesn't erase his pain or his mistakes. Instead, he acknowledges them and chooses to stay connected with others who see his value even when he can't see it himself. That's the essence of healing, not becoming whole in isolation, but becoming real in community. For me, Bob's journey was more than a storyline, it was a mirror of my own, and like him, I believed my pain made me unworthy of love and that my presence was a burden. But as the Thunderbolts reminded me, the right people don't rescue you by force, they rescue you by presence, by staying through the hard parts, by refusing to let your pain define you, and in that shared steadfastness, not in grand speeches, not in sudden transformations, is where healing truly begins. And I think that's why I loved this film so much. Its representation of pain really hits you in your heart if you've been through it. This film hits different if you've truly had depression before, and just remembering what I had to go through and remembering the people who were there for me and my friends who love me, who are now my family. It's just, I cried like 3 times watching this film. It's fantastic what they do here in a Marvel movie of all movies, and I don't know how they did it, but it was incredible for me. When I look back on the Thunderbolts, I don't just see a movie about anti-heroes trying to save the world. I see a mirror held up to the parts of myself I used to hide. Beneath the action and humor lies a story about broken people learning that they don't have to stay broken. Each character's journey reminded me that healing isn't a straight line. It's messy, it's painful, and often happens in the quietest of moments, surrounded by people who refuse to let you give up. For those of us who have battled with depression, that message feels deeply personal. It's not about pretending the darkness never existed, but about realizing that you can still find light, sometimes in the unlikeliest of places, and often in the people who choose to love you through it. What the Thunderbolts taught me, and what life has shown me, is that no one heals in isolation. We like to think strength means standing alone, fighting your battles yourself, but real strength comes from connection. It comes from letting others see the parts of you that hurt and trusting that they'll stay away. The friendships I have now, the people who have become my found family, did more than make me happy. They helped me rediscover myself. Their love gave me a reason to get up, to try again, to believe that I was worthy of the same compassion I offered others. In that sense, the Thunderbolts isn't a superhero story at all. It's a human story, one about forgiveness and community, the quiet power of love. It reminded me that even when life feels unbearable, there's always hope hiding in the connections we make. When I see that ragtag team laughing and fighting together and forgiving each other for everything that's happened, I see my own circle of friends, the people who taught me that love doesn't erase pain, but it makes the pain more bearable. And then eventually, once you get those connections and you get that love, the pain eventually fades. And maybe that's the real message of the Thunderbolts. You don't need to save the world to be a hero. Sometimes just showing up for the people you love and letting them show up for you is enough. And in a world that often feels cold and lonely, there's something more heroic than that. And that's what I have to say about the Thunderbolts today. I hope that this video helped you, I don't know, realize something you didn't realize about the Thunderbolts. I don't know if anyone's really seen Thunderbolts. I haven't seen many people talking about it, but I don't know. It wasn't just another Marvel movie for me. It felt different, I'll say. I guess if you haven't gone through it, you won't really understand, but this film just hits different, man. And if you're still here watching this video, I hope that it may have helped you. I hope you enjoyed. Please drop a like on the video. It really helps in the algorithm, and subscribe, and please leave a comment. Say your favorite moment, or I don't know, something you liked about the Thunderbolts. Just, drop a comment. Let's talk in the comments. I answer all the comments. I read all of them. I'll like your comment and respond to it. But yeah, if you're still here, thanks for watching the video. And as always, I love you. I'm here for you. I know I'm just a talking video here, but I'm here for you, and I love everybody who is under the sound of my voice watching this video. I love you. I hope you have a fantastic day today. Peace out.